Hello, everybody. Welcome to the panel discussion on getting teams aligned on strategy, which is moderated by Shahidul, Mannan. Over to you, Shahidul.
Thank you, Peter. I would like to start with introducing our wonderful panel. And thank you all for joining. So I will start with Irena. Irena Prasilova is CTO Portfolio Director and Prague PMO Lead of MST. She has strong expertise in talent management, post-merger integration, shared services centers, and process analysis and process architecture design. We have with us Elvira Molitor. Elvira is executive consultant and coach with Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. She is linking strategy to the investment, building the portfolio in the non-profit context, establishing a portfolio office, and supporting the change journey. And we have Salman Saif. Salman is with UCB as Director, Head of Strategic Planning and Operations in Epilepsy Franchise. He has over 12 years in pharma and healthcare, driving commercial, business, and development strategies and strategic operations through effective strategy building, clear alignment between strategy and operations, and ensuring excellence through end-to-end program and portfolio management. Welcome to our esteemed panel. And we will get started with today's another very interesting and timely topic, getting teams aligned on strategy. So we all know high-performing teams are at the core of any transformation and any successful organization. So we will start focusing on how we can align this team with the right strategy and make it dynamic and high-performing to execute and move forward. So my first question is to our panel, how to ensure that your project team members have a deep understanding of the business pain points to handle during project execution. And I'll start with Salman.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I would like to think, in a different layers or different level because of the exposure. So when it comes to team member Shahidul, so I would think that, and what I found, it's helpful that if you can translate or speak the same language for those stakeholders. One example being that, so if you are in a team and you have a clinical development, which normally leads the clinical trial. So if you let them know that, guys, by having a month delay, it means 10 million euro difference in your NPVU. So that brings a different perspective in a way altogether. So that raised them to think beyond their function. So that doesn't mean that they are not thinking beyond their function, but I am just trying to use this as an example. So if you can relate different terms and make some interlinks of one function with another one, so people can translate their language into the other's language, and hence you can make them aware or a pain point or business pain point more visible and understandable.
Thank you, Salman. And Elvira?
So I normally go about that in relative practical terms. My number one tactics is to give the project team members exposure to the business. So like letting them see the customer, allow them to go out there as well. Sometimes there is pushback because people are telling me, why do we have to spend all that travel budget for these technical people? It's good when the business people go, and I say, no, they need to go out there and need to see the customer. So I let them participate, sometimes even in business meetings as a go-see, just as an observer. Even better if you can find a good reason for them to make a small presentation there so that they're exposed to how the business thinks and ticks. And then also, what works also very well for me if they are allowed to get the same training as the business people so that they fully understand that business language that Salman also mentioned sometimes can be a barrier in the understanding.
Thank you. Excellent points. And Irena, we want to hear from you.
What Elvira said is 100% correct. Maybe like on the top of it, we have moved, or we are in the middle of move from project managed organization into product managed organization. And if you want to reflect the strategy and reflect business pain points during the execution, that the product organization is the best for such thing, because then from organization of things, the business is very close to the delivery and has a hands-on by ideation, by participation in the development. We have like a fast delivery, multiple releases. So the interaction between the business and the project team is like on the almost daily basis, and it's very close. And this certainly helps. And generally, when you would like to get the people to see what is in the strategy, you cannot translate it like this is execution, this is strategy. You have to have something between. So basically, is to have like strategy represented by some business outcomes. So split to business outcomes, maybe then a little bit sorted to more sub outcomes. And then you have to define for each business case or piece of work, what are the business drivers and what are the KPIs. And this way, like it's very evident that if I do this and influence the KPI this way, it has an influence to the company outcome.
Thank you. And I'll move to our next question, which is, we all know that we can have a great strategy, we can have great program execution and find the results. But then comes another hard part, which is adoption. And without adoption, you really cannot see the final result and the final outcome. So how do your project teams contribute to faster adoption of new solutions, be it business or technological, post-project delivery period? And how do you ensure that your solutions respond best to improve the results of your client team? And I want to start with Elvira.
So in Syngenta, the way we are organized is that the people that develop products with the project team also still have a part-time role in the ongoing operations. And in that role, for example, they would go out with customer and resolve issues. So while they are, so after they finish their role on the project team developing products, they would then also act as a how you call them, as a service manager or somebody who accompanies the product introduction. And of course, there they learn a lot that they can then bring again into the next assignment on the project. Typical example would be, for example, that they would do post-launch post-launch surveys, for example, on resistance that would emerge. And thereby they are there when the product is launched, they learn, they can bring that learning into the next development, and at the same time that supports the adoption of the product itself.
Thank you, Elvira. Couldn't agree more. I think that support is very critical. And also preparing for the adoption early on with the training, with the proper evangelism and the readiness, all these comes together. Excellent points. And we want to hear from Irena.
Yeah, it's. I would extend what I said before. There are actually two things: fast adoption and the value. So fast adoption is to involve business and to have the sprints and timely delivery and timely releases. And if you release the product into execution, then to have like a DevOps organization. So you're running the product, and at the same time you are doing additional development on the top. So you are doing the support and development at the same time. This is like an ideal setup for something what you want to stabilize, but it's still like a living organism.
Exactly. And we want to hear from Salman.
No, thank you. I think I would agree what has been said before, and if I just need to add from my side, I would just pick on what you were saying, Shahidullah, also in a way that I think it's a lot also depend on preparing upfront, preparing your internal stakeholder, preparing your external stakeholder, or let's say, even if we talk about any drug solution, it's, like preparing the market, the term that we use, and then try to go in a waves so that you get the feedback and then you adopt on the way. And then if I have to put it more in a conceptual way, what we are trying to do within our team, it's always asking one question, but in two ways. We usually ask, does it work or will it work? But now we are trying to shift and asking the question, how does it add value? So that you can always create a link between what you want to do with the value that will be created for the business, for the patients, or for your stakeholders. And that approach is applicable for most of the things or anything I would say you want to do, but it's also applicable here in terms of the adoption or to getting more buy-in for your solution.
Excellent point, Salman. Certainly, the value proposition eventually drives how far it goes, and if there's value and demonstrable outcome, certainly people are more enthusiastic to adopt, take the value out of their process or outcome. And I think Elvira made a good point about support. And that also triggers that as we go into a more operational model, there's always constant support and constant, I think Irena also mentioned about constant improvement and new releases. What kind of investment do these strategic sponsors have to make in the long run to support project teams operationally and ensure project success? And we can start with Irena.
Yeah, the strategic sponsors, their role is to be really strategic. So to have a strong sponsorship and strong like a decision power, because that's something what is probably the most important. And for strategic sponsors to be involved in in the whole life cycle of the business case or the work which is done. So you have to have a buy-in in the business case where you formulate the value which you're going to deliver. Then the project teams are delivering, and if you are overlooking them and you deliver this like the oversight of, for example, quarterly business reviews. So where the business meets with a sponsor and with the delivery team. So it creates and confirms the value and the direction during the whole delivery phase. And then at the end, when the product is live, then ideation and confirming what else has to be developed, and just going this direction and strongly support like where we continue and where we stop, where we can consider the product finished.
Thank you, Irena. And I think it's evident that a project strategic investment is not only contained with the project, but there are outside support systems that need to trigger in, be it operational changes afterwards, be it operational support. And we always keep in mind that there's constant change that's happening, right? So the project, how can we also make sure we have proper investment to address the changes that comes along? So great points. And we want to hear from Elvira, your thoughts on this?
I agree with everything that was said. A probably slightly different point could be that the sponsors that have the power to make life easier for the project team as well, and that is a big contribution they can make. So helping the team with resource prioritization, paving the way, but also spending time with the project team rather than sitting in an ivory tower and hoping everything goes right without personal involvement. So one of the agile principles applied here. And last but not least, also helping the people on the project team to rotate in and out the operations and the project. So building their career, not only in the project sector, could be things the sponsor could do for the team in order to create motivation and innovation.
Excellent point. I think that does bring another angle. Thank you, Elvira, for bringing that. It's also about supporting and sponsoring the people that are involved, and how we can keep them motivated, keep them upskilled, and also honed towards the goal of the project outcome. Great point. And Salman, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, I see, like it's difficult to go in the end. So you are short of ideas, right? What you want to bring. But I would emphasize also, I think the biggest investment they could do is to spending their time with the teams, because usually, and I think, people would agree with me that most of the times teams even have, don't know their sponsor in a way, in a big organization. So it's very important that people can visualize, can meet their sponsor in the beginning, but also at critical time of the project. So not just in the beginning or in the end, but in all those critical times. So sponsor is there to share the pain, share the vision, but also share the success, and then appreciate the team, to give them the energy. Because if you don't do that, you can get the compliance. In my word, compliance means that what you have to do minimum, you won't get the commitment which is required to go the extra mile. So you can only get it if you really bring people along with you, and there I think sponsor has a big role to play.
Great points. Yep. So it's not always about the money. It's a lot about visibility and time spent and investment of sponsors' own time and interest. Excellent points. Thank you. And the next question is, we know that meeting unplanned business needs is a long and costly process on projects that are already in execution stage. What are your favorite techniques to qualify new product changes and new requests from business in your projects? We all know that's something always there and always happens for good reasons, but at the same time challenging when you're in flight. So great point, a great question to discuss, and I want to hear, starting with Irena.
Yeah, this continual improvement and the project or product development after go live is always like a challenging thing. So what is necessary to have, if we decide that we have continuous delivery after product is live, then we have to have the ideation workshop with a business to discover like how much we would like to invest more into the product and what is needed, and then to have a validation. So do we really need it? What's the budget? And what's the our authority to change? So can we change it, or should we wait a little bit more? Then if these enhancements should be like significant, then well, let's start with proof of concept, and again involve business in like, okay, if we would like to move this direction, this is how it would look like. And if these are like a smaller things, then consultation on the backlog, what is in front of us in terms of development, and like talking about the backlog with the business and saying like, this yes, this no, this I need, this can be postponed. So this is like an essential thing.
Great point. So rationalization and prioritization and having that process set up is certainly critical. And on that note, I want to hear from Salman your thoughts. And also, do you think now we are going and adopting Agile in the process? Agile plays a role, and if so, how does it help you handle it better, or does it? So a little bit broader question, Salman, if you want to put your thoughts on that.
Oh, sure. And I would say it does. Although my word is drug development, which is a very long horizon, and you always expect and accept change in your plans because it's driven by science and data and also the business needs there. But I think where different techniques, or to say agile, would help is that it's to actually think in terms of scenario planning always. So you are not always thinking in one direction or one line. You are always talking with your stakeholders in terms of ranges, in terms of options. Like, we are going this way, but on this time frame, if this happen, it can be A, B, C, D, one of them. And then so you prepare them all the time that there is something coming and something coming, because what they don't like, the senior stakeholder, we all know, it's surprise, right? So they don't like surprise. So you want to prepare them, and that's the technique, that me and my team and my colleagues are trying to use, to be transparent and give them enough to entertain their understanding, and then when the time is right, give them more information and asking for scope of change or any resource needs that comes with that. And agile definitely helps, because then you are continuously doing those sprints or iteration, what I call more in terms of stakeholder management, that can make your life easier when you have to make an ask.
Excellent point. Thank you, Salman. And Elvira, what are your thoughts on this? And also, at the end of the rationalization, if you have to, say, reject a request, how best you go about handling it? I would just add that for you as well.
I think at the beginning, and Salman has alluded on that as well, I make for myself, I tend to make a differentiation between more or less serious requirements change, because I don't know whether you see that, but I have seen that sometimes you get unsolicited off-the-cuff requests for changes. And sometimes you get really good, reasonable changes, and sometimes it's not easy to discriminate between the two. So I think trying to discriminate between the two is an art. The sponsor plays a key role here. He can help you hold the line more and absorb potential conflicts that would lead to unsolicited requests for change. That is definitely a help. And then again, back to Salman's point, I normally keep a risk register that I constantly review with the team, that is based on assumptions that are constantly reviewed. So the better we all know where we stand and why we are where we are, and the better that is communicated, the easier it is then to so make the call on whether that change is doable in a regulated industry. Our industry is heavily regulated, probably as heavily as pharma. And we are happy to apply changes if they actually at the end lead us into a better point. And one tactic to use there is to make the person asking for the change, make it a little bit hard for them to ask for the change. Ask for a business case, ask for a rationale, ask for the assumption. Sometimes at that point already, when it starts to become too tedious to even rationalize the change, you know that this was a case where you probably say no to, or it wasn't that serious.
Excellent points. Thank you, Elvira. And we are getting towards the end. Our last question is, how do you merge multiple points of accountability and decision-making between business technical project teams for project success? So essentially, we want to avoid conflicts. We want to avoid not having clear accountability, and certainly not finger pointing. So how do you handle that when there's a complex situation where there might be visibly multiple stakeholders who seem to be accountable, and there are various points of accountability? So in those complex scenarios, if you can give an example perhaps, and how best your suggestion is to handle this type of situation and conflict. And I want to start with Salman.
Yeah. So I would say, if it depends on the size of your organization as well, and more it's a bigger size, the more complex it gets. What I think I found it helpful, and I can live with the concept of shared accountability, because it's not always easy to draw the line. It's not black and white, but I think it's very complex to define those things when there is a problem, because then nobody wants to take the ownership and no one wants to take the accountability. So one tip or one thing I found it helpful is that whenever you're going to start something, that's the best time to define those roles and responsibilities or accountabilities, or having an attempt to draw the line on that. So if you do that upfront, then you have that reference point that you can bring along the project or program time frame. But if you try to do in between or when the problem occurs, it would be almost impossible, or you may end up in a blame game if you try to do that.
Excellent point. Thank you, Salman. And Irena, your thoughts?
Yeah, in the normal like waterfall world, you would go after this project charter specifying what are the responsibilities. In agile delivery, you have to have well-defined the value team, then the product lines beneath and the squads and their responsibilities. And there are ties between the technology or technical teams and business at all levels. And at the top, like how to check that there's a consensus and there is decision taking is what we experienced this quarterly business reviews. So you go through the lifespan of the product, like a yearly process, and each quarter you're bringing to the table the technical people, value team lead, product line lead, squad lead, and you are tackling the progress of the product in sense of what was delivered and what value was created. And then you have to bring to the table your customers, so basically the people from the business, and you are presenting and signing on the value and on the achievement at the same time. And this way, it's like a collective acknowledgement, collective decision, and then this is like a checkpoint, and you have some decisions, and you can move and you go further for next quarter. So this is like a very efficient way how to handle this ambiguity between the decision makers and like the point between like a technical people and the business. You're mute, Shahidul.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Irena, for your insights. And we want to go to Elvira for your thoughts.
I keep that probably short. I totally the idea of combining the business and technical view in one body. Let me call it body. Makes a lot of sense, and that's also what we are doing. I gave a presentation this morning, the keynote about that, and I would say 3/4 of my keynote was about how to construct these teams and how to make sure that the key topic there was how can we set up a situation where those teams can operationally talk to each other and where it makes sense for them to be in one team, and at the same time where the more abstract strategic objectives can be taken into consideration. And if you can construct that, Irena gave us an example how she does that in an agile environment. I think that is still the best way. And I personally believe conflict isn't a bad thing. Because sometimes in that yes, it is. I mean, I hate it when I have to go through it, of course. But after the event, in all of my experiences, the learning was great. The progress we were able to make because we allowed that conflict to happen and to surface was a very healthy and a good decision to make.
Thank you, Elvira. Excellent points. I think we are at time, and we had a great discussion and insights from our panel on how we can get our teams aligned on strategy for best outcome and execution. So thank you to a great panel. Thank you, Salman, Saif, Irena Prasilova, and Elvira Molitor. And thank you all for listening and joining. Back to you, Peter.
Thank you, Shahidul. Thank you all for the great panel. And soon, in a little while, we go on with presentation case study by Bahadir Jackman. Bye-bye.